Right, so today I want to talk about Pyramid Head's add-ons. Relatively speaking, compared to other killers, his add-ons are pretty damn weak. These in this tier list are relative to each other. If you had to put them relative to other killers, you would probably see most of these in E or F because they're just pretty bad overall. And there's only a couple you want to take, and some you may take if you've got a certain plan or certain playstyle you play, but nothing really that makes this power really good or boosts it towards something a higher tier. You know, there's nothing here that you have to take. There's just some tests here that can help you out in certain scenarios that you may struggle in while playing Pyramid Head. But honestly, if you take no add-ons, you're not going to be like significantly weaker. So keep that in mind here. None of it here is going to be really groundbreaking or game changing or anything like that. Alright, and I was going to do this a little bit differently than I did my last one. I'm going to go through like the different types, but we're going to go from top down to bottom down. And we're obviously going to start with the best add-ons you can get for Pyramid Head, which are the range ones. The top two ones here are both range ones, and then the third one down here, a little bit down, further down, because, well, it's brown, you get these quite common, but it only increases the distance of your if you don't know Pyramid Head's power, when you're holding down his power, you can M1 to shoot a sort of projectile through the environment and anything like that, and hit somebody. It is shown its location before it hits two survivors very briefly, about half a second, if that. And this increases the range that it goes, so you can hit survivors from further away. This is just very useful, just because it can help get shots that may just not about reach. By default, the length is 8 meters, so this brown one's significantly lower because it only increases it by a 0.5 meter range, so it goes up to 8.5. Whereas the Wax Doll, which is the yellow one, increases it by 4 meter. And the Burning Man is 1.5 meters. So if you combine these two together, you get a total of 2.5 increase, or increase to 10.5 meters, which is pretty decent and can really help with those survivors who, when you're looping a survivor and you go to use this power, a lot of survivors try and either move away from the loop or try and fake their direction. This isn't particularly helpful the direction if they try and switch that direction, unless you predict where they're going. But this kind of helps the people who will try and move away from the loop, get that extra distance. Or if you're trying to do like hits through the wall, you can get like the entire distance of the shack from one side to the other with this, making it a lot less safe to stay inside shack if this is something you can try. These are just the best, just because this is the most universally good thing you can do to his power with these add-ons, but they're nothing too crazy. If you don't bring them, there's going to be some niche scenarios where, oh, that would have hit if I bought the Burning Man painting, but it's just there to kind of help, if that makes sense. It's not going to, suddenly turn 0Ks into 4Ks. None of these are going to do that though. So the next ones are the Mannequin Foot, the Cinderella Box, and the Lead Ring, which increase how long the torment trail that Pyramid Head leaves behind lasts on the ground. By default, this lasts 75 seconds. The Lead Ring increases it by 10 seconds to 85, the Cinderella Music Box by 15 seconds to 90, and the Mannequin to 20 seconds, so 95 seconds. You can obviously, once again, stack these for even longer lasting. If you stack the two most powerful ones, you're going up to 110 seconds, which is pretty good. This can help with certain loops, really popular loops, or shack. If you find survivors really like certain loops or the shack per se, you can pre-torment these, and then when they run off there, it's already tormented. You don't need to slow yourself down by bitting them down. They get that torment early, and that just helps when you get them down, because then you don't need to hook them. The playstyle of Killer Pyramid Head, of course, being you're rarely ever hooking unless you are playing with particular perks and you want to save it for that final kill, but you usually will find that you will just cage people because it's a lot faster, and there's not many situations where you want to not cage when you got somebody tormented and downed. So that just helps with that, really. The only thing we'll say about this is there is a max elements sort of thing to it. Basically, if you've ever paid attention to when your trails disappear, or when you've been playing Survivor against a Pyramid Head, basically they'll disappear in segments or elements. Each one of these elements counts towards a sort of element max, which is 100. And this cannot be changed through any means. So if you're trying to go around the entire map and have like many loops in the map, tormented, this isn't going to help because you will reach the cap at the same speed. It doesn't do anything to stop that. This is just keeping certain loops tormented for longer, so you don't have to keep re-tormenting them over and over and over again. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of that. Also, it only will really help when looping, of course, or keeping survivors away from certain loops, because survivors are walking around. Most people know to crouch through this. If not, they'll work out pretty quickly, or just look up a guide or something like that to go against it. Or in certain maps, very wide maps, they'll just go around these torments and get to where they're going. A little bit, taking slightly longer, but not getting tormented for no reason. So keep that in mind as well. But they are pretty decent. Right, so next up is duration add-ons, which is the this is called the oppressor tablet. Then you have the spearhead, and then the copper ring. I'm looking at this and I think I got the lead ring and copper ring mixed up, but whatever. The both right near the same. You'll see. Just double check if you put these on for whatever reason. But you mostly want to be using the green and yellow ones anyway, so these two don't matter. Besides that, basically, by default, when you're using your power, you have 5 seconds of duration. This increases it. The copper ring by 1 second, the spearhead by 1.5 seconds, and the tablet of pressure by 2 seconds. This is pretty decent. Because it doesn't change the recharge rate. That will be static. So technically you will gain back the duration faster. So the recharge rate by default is 20 seconds, and duration is 5 seconds. By increasing the duration to, say, if you just use the oppressor tablet, will increase it to 7 seconds. The recharge rate stays at 20 seconds. So technically you're regaining more at a faster speed, if that makes sense. May not be the best explanation. The real problem with this is that you can use Pyramid Head's power at, say, 1% left technically, or 5% left. You don't need to get to that maximum duration to use this power. It just helps you get to it. And when you're using his power, you don't tend to use it for the full duration as well. You don't use it for the full 5 seconds, so these extra seconds don't really have a benefit. It kind of helps towards this plan of keeping one on the ground, so you can kind of combine the two green ones to kind of have longer last ones on the ground, and be able to torment more at the same time. But it doesn't really help too much. It's not going to really be helping in looping too much, but it kind of in that situation where if you want the cooldown to be shorter, this is actually a better way to do it than the actual cooldown ones, ironically. So yeah, it's not much to talk about. It's basically the cooldown ones but better. But we'll get to the cooldown ones later. The effect's okay. It's kind of weak. You kind of just want to go for the ranged ones. That's what this whole thing's coming to. You just kind of want the ranged ones because they're the most consistently good. But there's certain playstyles you can obviously play with these. Like I said, you can combine this with the ones left on the ground to, do more at once and coming back to them less. So next we'll talk about the iridescent medallion, which is when you send a survivor to a cage, other tormented survivors will be revealed for 6 seconds. There used to be a bug where it would reveal the person who got caged as well, so you knew where the cage was. Doesn't happen anymore, so that sort of use has been taken away as well. So keep that in mind if you're like an old Pyramid Head player. That's not there anymore. And the second problem is the fact that it has the requirement to torment multiple survivors at the same time. When you torment somebody, you're usually in the loop, chasing them already. So you'll chase somebody, you'll torment them, send them a cage, find somebody new. The main value it comes from is basically if you torment somebody and you injure them, but then they somehow escape or you lose them or something like that, you can go for somebody else, torment them, cage them, and then you can find out where the other person is. The only way to get rid of torment, other than being caged, is to rescue somebody else from a cage. So this person who's tormented will want to prioritize uncaging the person who's been uncaged. So that can help in that situation as well. But it's not gonna, like I said, the playstyle Pyramid Head doesn't really benefit this sort of thing. It has it's very unreliable. If that's the correct way to put it, you're not gonna guarantee value. But it can kind of the duration is 3 seconds, but you can also boost up with Lethal Pursuer if you go for something like that. If you do like a Lethal Pursuer, I'm all ears sort of build, you maybe get some value out of it that way as well. But it's pretty mediocre and just largely inconsistent. Right, so next up is the Lost Memories book, which makes survivors oblivious when they're tormented for 15 seconds. It's quite useful in a loop. Besides one major problem that comes with playing with Pyramid Head, he is loud. He has this weird breathing noise that he makes, and especially his sword dragging sound. When he drags his sword underground, so when you're not using your power or when you're using your power, it is loud, and the survivors can hear that very easily, so you're not going to be hiding very easily. So you're not going to be catching survivors off very easily with this. If you're doing it like through a wall or something in an indoor map. But like I said, very loud, and survivors are probably not going to be caught off guard, and the duration is pretty short. So keep that in mind. If you're going to try and use this, take it to an indoor map, I would say. But other than that, meh. That's the pretty much answer to that. Take Tinkerers or something, you might have better luck. Catching survivors off guard. Not much else to say about that. Right, so next up is the Rust Colored Egg, which makes survivors oblivious when they are tormented for 60 seconds. They're usually affected mid-loop if you're playing Pyramid Head the usual way. So you kind of have to play it a weird way, maybe like an indoor map where you trail like the entire, like maybe if you're on like Midwich and you just do the entire corridor or something like that, but then survivors tend to crouch or something like that. The only time it could be really useful is if survivors are running aura reading perks or a key, per se, that sees the aura of the killer. So Windows of Opportunity or Wiretap, it kind of counters that because it makes them not be able to see auras. But Wiretap I haven't seen much of at all recently. I only saw it like first week of Ada's release. Windows is kind of popular, sort of, a bit more than Wiretap, but it's not that strong of a perk that it's worth taking a add-on slot to counter it. So it's a unique effect, which is more than you can say about a lot of these add-ons, but it's not a good effect. So you could probably try and meme with it if you run into a lot of people running aura effects, but the fact is you probably will run into a lot of aura effects and you go, I'll run this perk, and you'll get 0 aura effect players, and then you'll get no value from it without even realizing it until the end of the match. And that's another issue as well. Even if you do get value from it, you don't even realize it until the end of the match, so it's very hard to feel that value, regardless of if you get any or not. Right, so next up is the Crimson Book, which inflicts hemorrhage on survivors when they get tormented. No, sorry, that's incorrect technically. They get hemorrhage when they're injured and tormented at the same time. There's 2 big issues with this. You either need to hook people instead of send them to cage, or hit somebody, torment them, and then leave them to really get value from this. This is because when you send somebody to a cage and then they get rescue from that cage, torment uh, is disabled on that person, so they no longer have hemorrhage, which is a problem. If was like hemorrhage while tormented and 30 seconds after, that would be helpful. But it's really not, really not useful, right? If that makes sense. You can kind of probably put it with an anti-heal build as well. So Nurse's Clawphobia. Problem with Clawphobia is Pyramid Head toe radius is standard at 32 meters, and if you're on anti-heal, you usually take Sloppy Butcher, unless you like really don't want to M1 with Pyramid Head, which isn't proper way to play him. You will be M1ing. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you kind of want the hemorrhage effect, you probably want to bring Sloppy Butcher, so you also get mangled with it as well. But you can probably have some fun with this if you bring the right build, but probably not anything too strong. So yeah, keep that in mind. Alright, so the next thing on our list, down here in D, are the recharge effects that I mentioned earlier. Sorry, not that, it's not correct. The Dead Butterfly, the Forgotten Videotape, and the Set Photographed. These reduce duration, not duration, sorry, the recharge. They increase the recharge rate, so the Dead Butterfly reduces by 2 seconds to 18 seconds, and then 3 seconds, and then 4 seconds, so minimum of 16 seconds. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier, the duration ones are actually better at reducing your cooldown, because it increases it by a higher percentage, if that makes sense, because the duration is longer, and you can also use your power at any recharge rate. So you don't need to be hitting this 20-second cap to start using your power again. You can be at 5 or 2 or something like that, and you can still use your power. So the recharge add-ons only really have the max benefit when you are fully depleting your power. And you don't really want to be doing that. I mentioned earlier, you're rarely ever doing that. You're rarely ever depleting your power. And especially when you're looping. If you're looping, you're not depleting your power fully. You're doing like through pallets or through strong vaults. So you're not going to be using up all your power. So the recharge gets very little value, and the duration is just better for whatever plan you're trying to use. With the holding the power for a long period of time. And yeah, like I said earlier, you can also mix that with the keep on the ground ones earlier. So if you're going to want shorter cooldown, you're better off taking the duration ones and the recharge rates, which is kind of ironic. So if you want to make these stronger, so you want to see them buff significantly, or probably just reworked into something better and more interesting. Other than that, yeah, nothing too interesting to say. Right, next up is the Obsidian Goblet, which makes you undetectable when you stand on your own trail. I like I like this add-on. It's a very interesting idea and allows for some interesting plays. The real big problem with it, though, is the fact that it requires you to go to a place while using your power before you can get that undetectable effect to it, in which, if there's any survivors there, they know that you're aware of that place, and you probably want to start a chase instead of going undetectable. This obviously isn't going to help mid-chase because they can see you. Like I said earlier, you're loud, and they're probably just going to leave the loop, and you're probably going to have a small area that you can stand on. This obviously synergizes with the duration add-ons a little bit, because obviously it keeps trails there for longer that you can use for a detectable approach. But it's obviously one big giant meme. Nothing is strong about this at all. And if you want undetectable, I honestly think Tinker's is really strong on Pyramid Head. I played some earlier and had some really good success with approaching with Tinkerers. People definitely left loop early, but because obviously of the sound, but not as early as if I approached with my terror radius. So if you want some stealth to your Pyramid Head, Tinkerers is probably the way to go. But if you want stealth, you're probably playing the wrong character. This isn't really that good. But it's an interesting idea, and I have to at least commend that for, something unique. But I don't know how you could really buff it. Like, maybe if it, like, at the start of the match, your trail spawns randomly in the match, but then how would you balance that? How do you make it so it spawns in a good place? It's hard to say. Personally, you probably just want to see a sort of rework for this. instead of keeping this, because it's overall weak. But like I said, it's interesting and you can probably have some fun with it, but you wouldn't be using this for a competitive edge, so to say. Right, so the last three all do the same effect but at different rates, which is the leopard print fabric, the misty day photograph, and the scarlet egg. They all increase the killer instinct by 0.5, 1 second, and then 1.5 second, respectively. Uh, this is just really bad. I kind of wanted to put them in F tier altogether, but I kind of said E because I see some slight benefit to it. One big issue with this is Killing Instinct is not aura reading, so it's not affected by Lethal Pursuer. Killing Instinct is a pulsing effect of about every 1 second. So the Leopard Print is really bad because it only really increases the lingering effect of the final pulse, then adding an extra pulse sound. The Misty Day does add an extra pulse, and then the Sky Egg adds a pulse with an extra linger. These just aren't that useful at all. Usually you're mid-chase with these people when you are tormenting them, so you know where they are most of the degree, and because of the pulsing effect, you can't actually accurately say where they are. It does follow them, but it doesn't follow them to a T, if that makes sense. So if you're trying to hit those extra shots, you want actual aura reading perks or add-ons. If this was aura reading instead of Killer Instinct, it would obviously be a lot better. But it doesn't. And you're probably better off taking something like I'm All Ears to get some really good aura reading if you're taking Lethal Pursuer, and that will help a lot better again these pot shots, especially if you use a range, rather than trying to guess where they're going with Killer Instinct. That doesn't last too long. So I tried to think of like meme builds you could do this with, situations where the Killer Instinct might be more worth it. But honestly, instead of taking these add-ons, you take range, you take Lethal Pursuer, you take I'm All Ears, and you probably have a lot better time and a lot more luck with these pot shots. So I can't really say there's a situation where this is worth taking. And yeah, that's basically it. I have been shitting on these, to be blunt. These have not been that great. Like I said in the beginning, compared to other killers, these are absolutely dreadful add-ons. And honestly, I think a lot of people, including myself, would love to see some reworks to these add-ons, make them more useful, add some unique ones in there, like they did with Legion with the hitting 15 times, get a bonus in the end game one. So yeah, just come up with something interesting and something unique for Pyramid Head, and just make it a bit more fun to use different add-ons. Because the reality is, you're probably using either these top two ones or the second two top ones. So these combo or this combo and nothing else. And you probably bring pretty much the same perks I'm All Ears, Lethal Pursuer or Eruption, Deadlock, stuff like that. The build varieties are not large. It'd be nice to see some perks, some add-ons that encourage some perk variety as well, even if they're not super strong, but something a bit better than the Goblet, which doesn't really increase perk variety and kind of is a very, very weak iridescent. Other than that, I think that's everything I got for you today. Yeah, so thank you for watching. See you soon.